Welcome back, everybody. Today's tutorial, we are going to be using Adobe's Firefly to animate all these photos that I've gotten from Adobe stock. And then we're going to bring them all together into After Effects. We're going to overlay them. We're going to composite them together. We're going to add some grunge. We're going to add some texture. And we're going to add a lot of fun. And then we're going to come out with this really unique piece that I'm really excited to show you. Let's go ahead and get started. The first photo I found was this man staring at the wall. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that into Firefly. I am going to set it as the first frame. Here you want to make sure that your resolution is set to 1080 at 16:9. The prompt we're going to be using is camera is stationary, man walks from left to right and stops to stare at the blank wall. Here's what I came back with, and you can see it's a little bit problematic, and what I realized is I forgot to take the man out for the first frame. So I'm going to take this back into Photoshop. Here in Photoshop, I'm just going to select them, and then I'm going to remove with the new generative fill from AI, and then I'm going to save that again, and then I'm going to go back into Firefly. Here in Firefly, I'm going to set that as the first frame, and then the original image I'm going to set as the last frame, and then we'll click Generate. All right, let's go ahead and take a look and see what it did. And you can see it's the same animation. I don't know why the guy shrinks down there at the end. Unfortunately, these are the kind of things we get with AI, but that's okay. We can work with it. Next, let's go ahead and look for a whale, a turtle, and then we are going to bring those into Firefly. So let's go back into Firefly. Here we're going to bring in our whale as our first frame. And then the prompt we're going to change over to camera is stationary. The whale swims in slow motion. Bubbles move past and off its fins. Let's go ahead and click Generate and see what happens. All right, that's a pretty good animation. That's actually a really good animation that I came back with. So we'll go ahead and save that one. Next, we want to bring in the turtle. So we'll go ahead and set that as the first frame. Same prompt. I think I'm just going to change the whale to turtle, and then we'll click Generate. Here's what it gave us for the turtle. You can see that it goes from black or from white to gray screen. I don't know why it did that, but that's okay. We'll work with that. And lastly, we want to bring in this graphic texture. So the prompt we're going to be using is camera is stationary, animate this graphic. Hit Generate. All right, back in Photoshop, I'm just going to select the guy here, and I'm going to try one more frame here. I'm going to set that as the first frame. Oh, here we go. We can see what the texture did. Yeah, that looks good. We can work with that. All right, now let's go ahead and bring that man that we just created. And then I'm going to say camera stationary, man starts off frame, walks to the middle, and then turns to stare away from the camera. And we'll see what this does for us. And the reason I made it black and white is because I wanted to create something that I could just set as multiply on the final image. We'll see what it does. Whoa. Okay. Did we need to see that again? I don't think so. All right, let's not talk about that. All right, so let's go ahead and download all of these assets. And if you wanted to take a second look at this, here you go. Whoever needed that, you're welcome. All right, let's go ahead and go back into After Effects, create a new composition. I'm going to roto the first layer, so I'm going to select the man and then rotoscope him starting from the last frame. I'm going to rotoscope him to the beginning. And the rotoscope tool, if you don't know how to use it, basically anything that's green, with your green brush, you're going to be adding to your selection. If you hold down Option, you're going to be switching that over to a red brush, and that's going to take away from your selection. And then we're just moving this, and After Effects is doing all the heavy lifting here. So now that I got a few frames, I'm going to jump to the end, or the beginning of the clip in this case. And again, After Effects is going to go through and do all the work for us. Once you're happy with that, freeze the selection. This way, After Effects isn't propagating every frame every time you scrub through it. We'll give it a second. All right, now back at our main timeline, let's go ahead and duplicate the layer, and then we're going to take away the roto brush. We're going to hold that frame still because we want that to be our background frame. And then the layer on top is now our roto. And you can see the man comes in and scales down for whatever reason. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in some guides. I'm going to bring in some guides to show me how tall the man should be. And then I'm going to bring the guide down to the bottom. And then I'm going to set a scale and position keyframe. And then here, I'm just going to scale him down. Oh, first I'm going to move my anchor point. So that way it scales from his feet and we don't have to move him every time. Oh, I'm actually going to have to go back. Okay, here we go. So let's move that anchor point down to his feet. And then let's go back to that frame. And then let's scale him down right here. And then again, that's why I put my grid lines there so I can make him that tall. All right, so I'm just going to scale him at a couple of places wherever he needs it. All right, let's go ahead and bring our whale in. I'm going to set it to multiply, and then I'm going to do -100 for the scale because I want him facing the other way because the man is going to be on that side. And we just want him to have something to look at. I'm going to move him down just a little bit, and then you can see that his fins actually go onto the floor. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my pen tool, and with my pen tool, I'm just going to draw a straight line across, and then I'm going to box him in and create a mask, so that way you don't see the fins going onto the floor. Let's bring in our graphic layer, and then same thing. We'll set it to multiply on top of the whale. We'll bring in our tint here, and then our levels, just to give it a little bit more contrast here. And then I'm also going to do a mask around. I want the middle of the image to be a little desaturated, so I'm going to go ahead and desaturate that, add a little bit of contrast, and then with the pen tool, you can hit G for the pen tool. I'm just going to draw just this random mask here. All right, and then I'm going to feather that. So hit F for feather, and then I'm just going to crank that up. So that way the middle of the image is a little desaturated and the rest of the image is good. Let's go ahead and bring in a posterized time effect, and then we'll throw that onto the graphic. All right, now let's bring in our turtle. The turtle, you can see it changes color here, so I'm just going to do a search for an invert, and then I'm going to drop that onto the turtle. So now you can see that it goes black and white. And we want a white, so I can just set it to multiply. So I'm going to get rid of the first half of that clip, and then I'm going to stretch it so that way it fills the remainder of the time. And then I'm going to set it to 125, click OK. And then I'm going to set this to multiply. And then I'm going to throw in a levels just to make him stand out just a little bit more. Give him a little bit more contrast. And then I'm going to turn him so he's facing the same way as the whale, just so they're swimming both side by side. I'm going to throw in a tint here. Set a keyframe for the position, and then I'm going to move him up here, set another keyframe, and then with the pen tool, I'm just going to hold down Option, and this will give you these little handles that you can make him swim across. Let's go ahead and add a camera now. So I'm going to go to layer, new camera, and I'm just going to make this a 50 millimeter. Hit OK. toggle down the layer settings, and then we're going to set an expressions keyframe by holding down Option and clicking on those stopwatches. I'm going to set a wiggle expression on both of these. And then let's go ahead and take a look at that and see what it looks like. So it gives it almost like a film strip kind of look. And because of that, I'm going to go back into Adobe Stock and I'm going to grab this frame. And then we're going to put that in here. And this frame, we're going to make it a little bit bigger so we see less of the border, set it to multiply. And you can see how this is becoming to look like a film strip or a projector almost. And then again, I'm going to go get some leaks. I'm going to add some more texture. I'm going to set that to screen. That looks pretty cool. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add a tint effect just to make it, to get rid of those green highlights. And now let's bring in another texture. And these are scratches. And I'm going to set this one to screen. And then I'm going to look for the levels. I'm going to throw that on there, and then I'm going to crank up the levels just to give it some more contrast here. Perfect. And then I'm also going to add a new adjustment layer and throw a invert effect on there. And I'm just going to change the opacity here to 0 so that way you don't see the adjustment layer with the invert effect. And then I'm going to set it back to 100 and then back to 0. And I'm going to copy those keyframes, and I'm just going to have them. It's almost like a flash. You can see what that looks like. And so I'm just going to add a few here at the beginning, and then I'm also going to add some at the end. All right, let's look for an offset. And then we're going to throw that on the adjustment layer as well. And this time the offset, we want it to go up and down almost like a film strip again. So just to keep that look going. So we're going to set a keyframe there. And then we're just going to move that down a little bit and then just go forward a couple of frames. And then we'll reset it. Go back to the original keyframe there. So it just goes down ever so slightly, and then we'll copy and paste that a couple of times. This time I'm going to make that effect shorter. This time I'm going to make it go all the way down. Then I'm going to copy and paste that effect a couple of more times. Now, I think what I want to do now is this man that's walking up to the wall, I think I want to make him almost like a glitch. Like I just want to make him disappear for a few frames. So I'm going to duplicate the layer by hitting Command-Shift-D, and then I'll just scoot that over just so that way when you play that back now, he disappears for just a few frames. And then we'll do that at the beginning as well. All right, let's go back to our main composition. You can see this is really taking shape here. One last thing I want to do is I want to add a black solid, and then I'm going to create a mask, and I want to make a shutter effect. So go ahead and hit M for mask. We're going to make that a subtract, and then we're going to hit F for feather, and we're just going to feather up that a ton. And then we're going to set a keyframe here for the mask path. We're going to scale this down towards the middle, almost like a shutter, and then go forward a few frames, and then we're going to scale that up. And then we're going to copy and paste that keyframe. So this is the effect that it has. And then we're just going to grab all those keyframes and then copy and paste them a few more times throughout. And lastly, I think what we want to do is just to meld all this together, we're just going to add a grain effect. And there you go, guys. That's how you take all the different elements that we created using stock photos. We brought those into Adobe Firefly. We've animated those photos, and then we brought all those elements back into After Effects. We've combined all those back into one single animation, gave it some grunge, gave it some texture, gave it some character, and I think this looks pretty cool. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's tutorial. If you did, go ahead and give me a like. If you want to see something else, make sure you comment down below. And then if you wouldn't mind hitting that subscribe button, that really helps me out. Thank you again so much for sticking around till the end of the tutorial with me. I love you guys. My name is Julio. I'm your motion sidekick. And until next time, peace out.